Good.
So, once you come in, Bob, welcome. And I started the recording. So you don't have a chance to say anything off the record like Almy did.
That's not fair.
Hello.
They're gone.
Tim, we lost you.
Yeah, I'm back. I was
Oh.
just putting my ear pods in.
Ah,
I don't want Sandra to be scandalized if she's listening in.
oh, okay.
Yeah. My daughter admonished me last night because I said something to her and the speaker was on. Her 8-year-old was there.
And she had to right away cover up her ears so as not to hear Grandpa, huh?
Right.
Scandal.
Or hear Mama, one or the other.
Yeah. Yeah. That she said something like that. You know, a good mama's not always one who uses the best language or something like that. Johnny.
Hi.
Sorry about your sorrow.
Thank you. Tom, would you check for me? I have some music coming through. Is that from you or is it something else on my computer?
It's not me.
Okay.
I don't hear it, Johnny. I don't hear it. It must be your imagination.
Or your computer. They can do things like that.
I have a door open and there are some sounds coming from outside, but it's not music.
What is it?
Can
Screaming
anybody-
priests? Screaming priests? People
Well, if
priests
it's
screaming
not
in the-
bothering you, then
That
I'll
we're in the
just leave
city,
it
in the
as,
distance, there's a backhoe operating or something like that.
Hmm.
Can you, any of you hear that?
No,
not
Okay.
I.
no.
So
Just leave it as is, Johnny. That's fine.
something's good. I have a foster dog chewing on a bone, but I wouldn't describe that sound as music.
It is to the dog.
Good.
Well, it is for a loving caretaker of the dog, too.
Of course,
Yeah.
yes.
He's
Now, what's this one's name?
his name is Gibson.
Gibson.
It's either as I said, after the guitar or after the martini. I
Not
have
after Mel.
It's a double. That's not bad.
Not
and he-
Mel. Not Mel.
No, he responds to Gibby very well. So, and he's one of the fosters on a medical, and he's one of the more fun ones to have because it's just R&R time. He's just to rest and relax.
Oh, you don't
The
have
TV
to.
dog.
Hey,
Welcome,
Frank.
Ned.
Hey,
Hi,
Tim.
Ned.
Everybody.
Conversation has already gone to the dogs here.
Yeah.
But
Tim.
Ned will raise it up.
It looks like you're home and outdoors. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm out on my back deck. Yeah. It's just glorious day. Just
Yeah,
glorious.
beautiful.
I don't have to use the fake background the way Bob Benoit does. When he comes on, he's always got some exotic, beach scene and all of that. No,
Yep.
I'll just be au natural.
Or university.
Ned, how are you?
Bird feeders in the background.
Great, thanks, Tom. Tim.
Yeah, they
Bird
are.
feeder.
Yeah.
Bird feeder.
So is today your 55th anniversary or what's the date?
Yesterday.
Oh, okay. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. And so,
Whoever
Fred, how long-
suggested
Fred, when
reaching
were
out,
you ordained?
Huh?
When were you
just
ordained?
gonna say, I love the idea of trying to catch up on where each of our 22 classmates has gone.
Oh, was it
It's a big project.
Tim, I was ordained in December of 1967.
Okay. Okay.
Just a half a year from the time that our class was ordained.
Yeah. And my,
That was-
because I was in Rome, my Boston class is actually this month, next month, the 29th of May, I think. Is
So
there?
And
Was
Bob, were
Ferrick
you
ordained- was
ordained at the
Ferrick
same
ordained?
time?
Huh?
Bob, were you two ordained at the same time?
No,
No.
I had left Rome at that point for medical reasons. I needed to return to the States, and I actually did not return to Rome for some other reasons.
I mean, you didn't want to join the illustrious crowd at Campo Verano?
Yeah, I ended up having an amazing year at Louvain. And I was ordained at the end of that year in June of '68.
Mhm.
So I, in a sense, experienced what today I guess it's called the Deacon Year. They may have changed the name, but on my own. And I actually spent the year in a graduate program doing a 3-semester Master of Arts in Psychology and Counseling. So it's a very different experience. Well, I'll continue to be active in my local parish and stuff. So, it was a really good year.
Did you ever see the I think it was a chapel, wasn't it, at Campo Verano? For students at the North American College who died while they were in Rome back in the old days of ship transportation when they couldn't ship the body back.
No, I never saw it. no.
I never saw it either.
I remember seeing that because I remember reading about some seminarians who, this would be back in the 20s and
And
30s.
Right. Especially during 1819, the Great Flu or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had heard something about that, but I never saw it. No. No.
I remember seeing it.
Campo Verano is the big cemetery in Rome.
Mhm.
So
Oh, I didn't know what you were talking about. Okay, thanks
Yeah.
for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Campo Santo in Spanish.
Tom, when were you in Rome? What year was that?
I was there for 2 years, but separated by 2 years back here. So it was 72, 73 and 75, 76.
and where were you studying, Tom?
San Anselmo.
Oh, okay.
I lived at the Casa.
Oh, yeah.
Studying
Yeah.
liturgy at San Anselmo.
Yeah.
And I could explain why those 2 separate years, but it would become much more colorful if I had a couple of glasses of wine in me instead of black coffee.
Well, we can tolerate it. Make it a promise for next week.
By the way, this glass, this cup is one that I got in Rome the last time I was there. With
Nice memory.
you ought to know.
It's nice. It's really lovely. You have a good camera too, the details are very good.
Reasonably good.
Ned, do you have any, we could wait till a few others join us or whatever, but I've been thinking a lot about our friend George and wondering if you have any updates.
Well, it gets to the point where the update is a little bit repetitious.
Okay,
Why don't I wait a little bit?
sure.
Maybe 10 minutes or so, and I'll tell you. I'm looking forward to our Wednesday.
I am too.
I think
Yeah.
George is very much looking forward to Elmy. I think he has some darts ready.
I think, I'm sure he does. And I have got some barbs for him too, so it'll be reciprocal.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm trying, and I wonder if Norm is going to be on today or Gary. Do we know? Tom, have you heard anything back from them?
Didn't hear anything back from them. I
Is
saw
Benoit
George
back?
Eric's photo of the restaurant.
What'd you say, Tom?
Obvious.
What
What about a restaurant?
George Ferrick's photo of the restaurant. I think he sent it to all of us.
That was funny. Yeah, just at the last minute. That was funny.
Mm.
If Gary comes on board today, we'll hear about the family restaurant.
And so what has your guys' week's been like? What's the week been like for you?
Oh, tomorrow, today in Boston, we are celebrating or observing the opening of Satan Con 2023, which has 1,000 devotees from in a conference that's organized by a satanic temple in Salem, Massachusetts, the home of witches, etc. But it's very interesting because
Morning,
they
morning, good morning.
Oh,
they
here's
don't
a famous
embrace evil.
restaurateur.
Go ahead, Frank.
They don't embrace evil. They basically say that their motivation is to promote rationalism and scientific thought versus irrational supernaturalism. So I'm chuckling at this because while they call their temple, they name it after Satan, I say, well, this is deja vu all over again. That happened in the Enlightenment. And why didn't they name their temple after the goddess of reason? Are they sexists? Of course, this is hoisting them in their own petard, of course.
Well, and even more, are they, with Christianity being, a minority in the world, and other religions vying for, if not dominance, at least for their. Well, let's put it this way: there's a lot of other religions now that nobody knew about back in the Enlightenment, and
Right.
why do they specifically go back to Christianity for their patron, for the patron of, to discover the patron of reason?
Yeah, that's good point. Yeah, and then I say they're against organized religion, especially except when organizational skills are necessary in order to build their temple and bring 1,000 people in a conference to Boston. But the serious part of it is, of course, is there's so many people who have the same motivation, even if they don't fly under such a provocative flag, namely rationalism, et cetera, kind of.
Well, one thing that I find disturbing is, it's hard to go anywhere these days without being subjected to a rather vast display of body art. In other words, tattoos.
God.
Mhm.
Yep.
And the amount of that is clearly satanic imagery.
Right.
To me, the horns, the inverted 5-pointed star,
Right.
all of that is a bit disturbing.
Maybe we should try and get Christians to have a tattoo made that says Satan is an asshole.
I can see it. I can see it now as a bumper sticker.
I would never want anything on my body. It's too painful. It wouldn't be worth it.
Well, you come to East Los Angeles and you'll see many tattoos of Our Lady of Guadalupe and crosses and crucifixes and
Right.
heads of Jesus on the cross, etc. So
Right.
Problem is, if you get Christian tattoos really going, and they do, Catholic ones, will probably be Padre Pio and
Yeah.
the ultra conservative. I wonder how many conservative Catholics after Francis was elected had tattoos of Benedict XVI put on their body.
I haven't seen any.
yeah.
Well, they're not where you can see them.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Of course,
It sounds
like
like there's
more apt to be a Benedict devotee.
here.
If I had to put a tattoo or a bumper sticker on, I think I would choose quid hoc ad aeternitatem from Saint Bernard of Clairvaux. All matter in the light of eternity.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
I think we all know the NBA playoffs are going, and
Right.
on the tattoo side, I've been struck by the fact that several of the white players on
Yeah.
Lakers have no tattoos. The
Yeah.
tattoos are dominant with the black players and not any or much with the white folks.
Huh?
Just
Well,
curious.
Well, that,
yeah, look,
that may be in the basketball world, but it's listen. There's tattoos all over. I mean, the people that I see, almost everybody. The
Yes,
tattoo,
my
black or
experience
white
too.
makes no difference.
But so striking on the basketball court.
yeah.
Well, you know, I'm a Warriors fan, and of course they're playing tonight. So are the Lakers. I'll probably watch both. At
And
least-
so they'll probably be with the Celtics, and we'll have tension in our future, Gary.
yes, I know, Frank. Well, I don't know that I was surprised, to be honest with you. I told my sister, who's a rabid Warrior fan, God, she knows every player and all their background and everything else. And I said, Joanne, I think if the Warriors get into the playoffs this year, they're not going to go very far, but I don't know. Once they get going, they seem to be going now. Maybe we'll meet, Frank, but we can have a friendly bet.
Yeah, well,
I'll bet you a bottle of Napa Valley wine, and you can bet me a live lobster.
all right, okay.
Oh, that's a good
that's-
deal.
That's
Yeah, well, it'll just cost me more to send them the lobster than you just send me the wine.
Yeah, well, I think I'm coming back east this September, so I'll make sure to
Oh.
look you up when I do.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah, we can settle the thing then,
Yeah, right,
if it comes to that.
right.
How's George Crook? Does any Ned? How's George doing?
I guess it's
That's your cue, Ned.
yeah, Bob asked a little before, and I was waiting for more folk to come in. He is doing okay. He's looking forward to Wednesday. He is.
Wish you could come to. Wait, Gary, I wish you could come down.
You know, I can't. I've got a lot of stuff going on this week.
Okay.
Yeah, I got funerals, and I got a doctor's thing, and so, but I can't. So
Okay.
Anyway, he's much more frail than he's been ever. He's 105, 110 pounds. He was 170 pounds before that.
Oh, wow.
He is beginning to eat. But by eating, I mean, Betty makes these concoctions and then gets frustrated because he takes a sip and, makes an ugly face and puts it away from him, But last couple of days, he's been there's this thing that she makes that's, you see, really high. I mean, it's one of these steel, very large cups that folks carry with them, and walk.
Oh yeah.
Drink from and all that. And she made this vanilla banana yogurt something, but it was full of protein and carbos. And he drank almost all of it.
Good.
2 days in a row. So that is good. And his hair's coming off. I think many of you have heard me say that. And they are thinking that the chemo is beginning to have its effects. And maybe that's why he said the what he drank tasted half decently to him. And previously everything's been to gag, it tastes so bad to him. He is walking very, very, very slowly. We'll use a wheelchair on Wednesday. And I don't know where we're going to celebrate Mass. They haven't decided where is best They have a nice little backyard where it might be really great depending on the day. But they also have
Nice, that would be good. Otherwise, right around the dining room table would be fine.
yeah, that's
Like
what I was thinking. But for some reason, they're thinking that maybe the bedroom may be the best place. I don't understand
Depends
that.
on whether he can get out or not. I mean,
Yeah, they've got him a nice.
here comes Stormin' Norman. Norman is storming in.
Where is he?
Oh, you'll get to repeat everything.
Yeah, I'll wait.
So who?
Admitted
on.
him. Come on, Norm.
Come on, Norman.
There he is.
There he is.
What is that? That's a tiny little picture in the middle.
Flickering screen.
There he is.
Oh,
There he
Norm.
is.
welcome aboard, Norm.
Hey,
Oh, and you got your screen decorations too.
oh yeah. Here we go again.
Flickering screen.
Psychedelics.
I don't know what the,
So Tim, you're flying to Southern California, are you?
Yeah, I'm flying to Santa Ana. Didn't it used to be called the John Wayne Airport until
Yeah.
they removed his name.
Oh, don't tell me.
And
he's
then
canceled.
yeah, my sister lives in Seal Beach, which I think is about what, a half hour, Johnny? Something, you know.
Sounds about
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
And so I'll bunk with her. She's a character. She lives in a 55 and up community called Leisure World.
Yes.
Geez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Bob Jabro lived there, didn't he?
yeah, Bob lived there.
I think Bob lived there. Yeah.
Oh,
Bill McLean
okay.
lives there. Gilbert Romero lives there.
Oh wow. Yeah.
There's a bunch of priests there, a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't mind being around old people, it's a nice place, you know. But, yeah, and so I'm gonna fly in. I get in kind of late Monday night, and then my plan is Storm and Norman and I are going to get together Tuesday, and then I come up and see George Wednesday, and then go over and harass
I'll go
Welbers
with
on
you to George's.
You will. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Good.
Canceled the
good.
other thing.
So you'll be able to join us for mass too
Yes,
and celebrate. We can kind of celebrate. Good.
yes.
And so,
Oh,
so
I mean,
if you guys are,
homily.
if you guys are going to come celebrate, does that require some coordination between the two of you, or I mean, how do you do that?
About 35 seconds.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's the mutual agreement not to fight over things.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, I was going to make a radical proposal, but Natividad has left the scene. But I'll wait till he comes back.
But that's
Maybe he had.
I know, but I couldn't. I've got to. Yeah, I can't come down. I got too much. I got funerals on Monday and Friday, and then a doctor's appointment on Wednesday. So,
Norm,
Wow.
your camera is, oh, I was about to say much better and then it went off again.
I
Yeah.
know. That's crazy. I don't know. I just have to give you another camera or something.
how about a new computer? You can.
Well, that's another possibility. New computer, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, aren't you a wealthy retired priest?
Yeah, right.
Well, so can I ask this question? Maybe it's too impertinent, but so I'm looking at Frank's retired, Tom's retired, Gary's retired, Norm is retired. So if you were in the service, you would get a percentage of your highest earning years multiplied by the number of years that you served.
Right.
How do you retired priests get pensions? Do you get paid what you made when you were active, or is it a percentage of that? How does this work?
In our diocese in Santa Rosa, you get, I think it's 50. I forget how much money it is. It's a certain amount per year. per year that you served. Like if it's 50, if you get, it's like, if let's say it's $55, it might be more than that now, but and if you work for 40 years or 45 years, it's 55 times 45, and then you get that every month.
Okay.
That's
Can you live on it? And can you guys live on your pensions?
I don't, well, I have a house and everything else. I couldn't, but I lived on that plus Social Security plus, I have inheritance, so I'm lucky.
Yeah.
I have, I was able to, and my brother-in-law got me years and years ago. He's not a stockbroker, but he just told me to start buying stocks. And I said, Dennis, we're not supposed to, remember down in the seminary, we were told never to do that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Really?
I remember in the seminary, we were told, the diocese will take care of you, Yeah, right. And we had a meeting a number of years ago in our diocese, and the person who was not the CFO, but she worked with him. She said, which the pension and is considered to be in addition to your own investments.
Ooh.
So that's a radical change from what I learned in the seminary, but that's how it's computed in our diocese. And, for a number of priests, that's all they have, that and Social Security. And they're able to live usually. I know one priest lives over here at St. Vincent's Rectory and pays a small amount, for rent and stuff like that. But everybody manages. Everybody seems to manage in our diocese anyway. I don't know how they're done in Boston or in Los Angeles.
Well, obviously we get a pension, and of course, the pension for me is just added money because I live here at the rectory free because I help out.
Yeah.
You do have to pay for your car. The difference, being retired in LA, the retired priest has to pay for his car, whereas as an active,
we always had to do that.
Yeah,
that was the one difference when I went to Santa Rosa, because I knew Los Angeles always provided a car for the priests.
Yeah,
but in
not
Santa
the
Rosa
big to do about that some years back in the, I don't know, late. Now I think it was the early 2000s when they wanted to do a reevaluation of the priests' salaries and means of support, and there was a significant movement to basically pay us a quote living wage, and then we would have to pay for more stuff that the parish or the archdiocese provides, pay for it out of our own responsibility. And I was on a committee that prepared a plan to pull together, the best practices of other dioceses and to try to come up with a proposal. And the proposal itself was just by a fairly small margin, but nonetheless voted down by the presbyterate. The priests basically wanted to keep all of the freebie perks that they had and not to have to be responsible for managing their money to get them. And to me, that was a big disappointment. But then again, I didn't mind taking advantage of the freebie perks that we got.
I remember right way back in our seminary years, weren't there a couple of auto dealerships that had close relationship with the diocese?
No, I think there was only one, and that was the Pontiac dealer. What was it called in downtown LA? But every priest had to have a Pontiac.
Wasn't there a guy named Smith or something? He was in Pasadena.
Yeah, that's the one I go to. He gives me a fantastic deal on cars.
Yeah,
but back in the old days, I think you had to go to, what was it? I think it was down on Figueroa Street in
Holmes Tuttle?
no.
Does that sound familiar? No?
But that was the only one officially that the archdiocese dealt with. I mean, we're talking about the 60s and 70s.
Yeah,
Uh,
Yeah.
What about Frank? What they did in Boston?
Well, I'm not entirely familiar because I was away. for
You
so
were
long.
you were working. You were a working
So-
man,
So,
unlike
well,
unlike
you
us.
all were- You all were too. So, but right now, like for instance, and I had to battle for this, by the way. They refused me at first, basically because they misunderstood their own thing. They didn't understand about incarnation and the fact that when I was laicized, my incarnation ended, so that anything, and it didn't start again until laicization was lifted. So anything earned in between was not earned as a priest. Like if you're a chaplain and you earn something, then you don't get a pension because you're incarnated and earning, as a priest, functioning, et cetera. So I didn't have any of that. So I battled with them and got a pension. My stipends in the area are $2,200 a month, and then of course I have a fairly robust pension from the company that I work for, plus additional coverage for what Medicare doesn't cover and for drugs. And drug medication, I mean.
we
then
knew.
Recorded here. and so then and then I have Social Security. So but where I'm living now, they take about $1,800. So I get about $500 of that back in my bank account. But I'm doing fine, and I've never had, at least in any of my years in the priesthood here, anything other than, I buy my own car. Sometimes during the year, I think they pay my insurance, that kind of thing. So that's pretty much where we are here. But living here, I have my room, I have my meals, I have my laundry done. They take me to my medical appointments if they're within reason and distance, et cetera. So, we're well taken care of.
And that's for $1,800 a month. You get all that?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Did you not hear that he has a very good company pension? And
No, I did hear that.
Social
I just was
Security.
thinking about what he pays for the retirement home he's in is really kind of, man, that's great.
Isn't that terrific?
And I've done a little homework in my area, and for that same thing, it's almost $4,000 a month.
Right.
mhm.
Right. And we're in downtown Boston. I mean, you can walk to some of the best restaurants and the symphony and all of that kind of thing. So
The common.
Massachusetts General Hospital is right next door. So
I have this friend of mine visiting with me now, and we went out to dinner last night, but I was telling him, basically, as priests, we're part of a welfare state. We had everything taken care of for us, but there was a reason for that. I mean, when I was giving retreats to priests, I would say, yeah, we get taken care of, but that's so that we can, we don't have that worry, having to, whatever people have to do, so that we can minister to, we don't have to. But I remember a friend of mine, Jim McCaffrey here in the parish, who said, he says, Father, he says, the one thing you don't bear the responsibility of a family. You don't have to, make a living, to buy a house, to feed a family and raise your kids. I said, no, we don't have, we don't have that burden. We lived in a welfare state. That's what we've done. But that was done so that we could, give our lives over in service. That's how I looked at it anyway.
Now, there's another aspect
we had
also, and that is, yes, I think that is very real, that we are taken care of so that we can give our lives more fully in service to the Lord and his people. But the other part of it is, and I think it's a very real one, is control. You know, we are, in a sense, we are,
Indentured
George
service.
Tranum said this after he left the Monsignorship and married Julie. He said, you know, as priests, we are kept people.
You know, there was
I think that's a little extreme. I think, for example, I think people with our level of education and capability, in general, can earn a good living, get positive feedback of our lives from our family and from what we're doing. And have a healthy sense of ourselves, who we are. And I think a priest can do the same thing. That if his mentality is formed by the fact that he's controlled or kept, then I don't think his priesthood is that dynamic.
No,
Oh, that's for sure.
I agree with that, Frank.
Frank,
You know, when I was thinking about staying, one of the factors that I had to think about was exactly this: being kept and being told exactly what to do and how and when, and judged constantly, not according to some kind of objective criteria, but according to the whims of whoever was doing the judging. And part of the reason that I decided I could not be a priest was because we were so completely under the sway of the Chancery office that I knew I was not going to be able to handle that. And it seemed to me that we were treated as the most incompetent of people, that what we needed to do was celebrate Mass, administer the sacraments, and administer them according to whatever James Francis Cardinal McIntyre or anyway, that's all way in the past. But that was one huge consideration that I had. I didn't know. I was so refreshed when I saw how the people from Arizona and the people from Fresno were treated by their superiors, by their bishops, given the kind of freedom that you might be talking about, Frank. But I would have been constantly beating against the peripheries, the boundaries, and going through the boundaries, and just hoping that I wasn't going to get, beat up. So it depends on your experience, I think, Frank.
It does, Ned, forgive me, but it does validate my experience, because the summer before I left, I worked in the Chancery office and got just direct experience with how Monsignor Hawks just intimidated the clergy from that place. And he spoke his own mind as if it were the will of, remember, the eminence.
Oh, yeah.
And so between what Hawks did that I observed and the challenge of celibacy, Tom, I think I went back for a semester, but I struggled as a result of that incredible experience at the Chancery office.
And Frank, the more able, the more imaginative, the more educated, the more
Mhm.
happy you were.
I know where you're going.
Okay, then if you know where I'm going, then you know what I'm going to say. There were lots and lots of priests who were just depressed. And I told you the very first night that I was at my second assignment, I had the associate pastor knock on my door and hand me a bottle of Chivas Regal to tell me that was going to be my best friend in the priesthood.
Oh, dear
Well,
God.
what the hell? Yeah. All of those things. You are so lucky, Frank, to have experienced your life the way you have, and I don't think that I could have reasonably foreseen anything like that in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Frank for a variety of reasons. On the other hand, I worked as a career counselor for clergy in transition for a number of years. And I discovered early on that most were so beat up in the process of making the decision, the lack of support, a whole variety of things, that before they could discover that they had these gifts, Frank, and were really very talented people and probably could make a good living, they had to get over, and that took anywhere from the best of them 6 to 9 months, a birthing process sort of, to several 3 years of just hanging in there before they could get in touch with their gifts and their skills to get on with their lives. So in a number of ways, I think several of you are saying the same thing. It's a tough transition. It's a very tough transition for a whole bunch of reasons, not least of which is the guilt, anger, and those are often hard to separate as part of the transition.
But let me ask
Question
this.
for Tom, if I may. Go ahead, Tim.
I'm just curious with Tom and Norm, did you have a different point of view than Ned?
Yes, I did. I've been very happy. I've enjoyed very much my time in the priesthood, and the friends that I've made, the people that I've seen, the things I've been able to do, and to me, it's been great. It's been an awesome time.
That's super, Norm. Absolutely super.
Okay, Ned, the 800-pound gorilla in the corner is, do you think part of how you were treated was racial?
Oh, yeah, that was not the reason. But that was part of the reason. We were the little brown guys that there weren't that many of us.
That's where the racism came in. There just weren't that many of you.
Yep. Among other things, Tom, I mean, that was part of it. We were not the thinking ones. We were the ones who did what we were told. And my God, don't you dare think otherwise. I was jumped on before. I mean, when I was in the diaconate and practicing it, I was brought in, I think I mentioned, and told, you will not play your guitar, you will not sing, you will not go into the classes of the children, you will not have scripture meetings, courses, dialogue with the faithful outside of the rectory. You are a doctor, and doctors don't go out to their patients come to them, and you will not deviate from traditional established doctrine that's in the book that Cardinal McIntyre gave you. Very, very thick thing that all the guys that got
Now it's thick in more ways than one.
oh gee. Yeah, absolutely. And right from the beginning, I was told this is the world you're in, and either get out or submit.
Did that come from the diocese or from your local pastor?
No, my pastor's the second pastor was wonderful. Just he was supposed to break me. Hawk said, "I'm sending you where you're going to get broken. You will be broken, and you will toe the line." And he and I, because he was so he wouldn't to celebrate mass in English, et cetera, et cetera. But very early on, he said, "Ned, I'm crazy. I am crazy. I'm certifiably crazy. And I'm going to recommend to you this therapist who will help you adjust and give you perhaps ways to move and have your being in the priesthood in a way that will use all of the talents that you have." The first one was just there, first pastor. The last pastor was never there. And so just in large measure, I'm sure that as Norm experienced, I don't know how, Norm, you experienced it right from the beginning, but you could, if you were doing things sub rosa, or counsel the folks that you were doing whatever you were doing with to keep it under the radar, I suppose you could do stuff and use your talents. I loved singing and playing the guitar and influencing people with preaching. That I've always thought that an element of homilies and teaching has to have some kind of grabber, as Gatlin used to say. "Hey, Ned, what's the grabber here?" And the grabber was something that was emotional, that connected with people. It wasn't simply doctrinal and rational. It was something, it was a story that grabbed people. I've always believed that. And Hawks specifically said, "Don't you ever get emotional on the pulpit." So I think the fact that I said, "Give me some time to just determine whether I'd like to accept your call," really just completely, got me out of their radar, and they wanted to just get rid of me. I don't know why they didn't just do it. Like Gary, I mean, I don't know how they.
I mean, they kicked Gary out of the whole region.
Well, I was not. I had not gotten to the point of being incarnate. I didn't have, what do you call it? I was not a deacon. I was a subdeacon, and that
Right.
when you become a deacon, and then you have title, and I didn't have that. So, and you know what? I've said this so often now. I mean, I went to an entirely different experience.
Oh yeah.
Not only in terms of a pastor, but in terms of a whole diocese. I mean, by then the Second Vatican Council had taken hold in a lot more places than in the Hawks McIntyre world.
That's for sure.
And dioceses function differently. I mean, I remember the bishop. I had arrived in October as a subdeacon in Healdsburg, which then was just a podunk town. Now it is high wine country, she to the max. I was there when it was nothing, but now they've got these restaurants. But anyway, I remember what's his name? Leo Maher walked into my room. He was coming to some Italian Catholic Federation dinner, and he said, "Well, how is life as a subdeacon here in Healdsburg?" I said, "Well, it's just fine, Bishop." He says, "Well, how would you like to be a deacon?" I said, "Well, I'd like that very much." "You want to do it?" I said, "Well, my dad said, can we do it on any weekend except the USC Notre Dame football?" Which was exactly the weekend that he picked.
Oh no.
I went to it, and I flew back and got ordained. And that was in December, because I think I was ordained on Our Lady of Guadalupe. It was an Advent, I remember, but I think it was December the 12th on a Sunday. And a month and a half later, a month and a half later, I got a call from the bishop's secretary who said, the bishop asked me to give you a call and see if we could start working out when you want to get yourself ordained to the priesthood.
Oh, that's
It
great.
was a whole different, entirely different.
Oh, Gary, you were ordained in 1968.
No, you were. In fact, you're
Yeah.
celebrating your anniversaries now.
Right.
69.
I was ordained in 69, March of 69. So a year, less than a year later. Yeah.
Because
And
I
so
know
my
that
question-
you are on our picture.
Yeah, I know.
how
I
did you
got,
get?
they
How
replaced.
did you get on the picture?
Well, they put me there. We used to go around the halls of St. John Seminary, and John Moretta would always point out the guys who left the priesthood, they take their picture out of the ordination and they put a palm tree. John said, well, you're no longer going to be a palm tree in the class picture. So,
Frank, you went to Rome. Bob, you went to Tom, you should have gone to Rome. Did you feel when you dealt with the bureaucracy of your dioceses that that you were given certain talents, certain limitations, that just were personal, and that you recognized them? You knew that you were going to be able to grow beyond the limitations, at least to a certain extent, and that you were going to be able to use your gifts. Did you feel all of that just before and certainly after ordination?
Are you kidding? Man, are you kidding? A 21,
I'm asking.
a 21, 22-year-old? Are you kidding?
Well, 24.
I was feeling my way along as best I could, and I thought I knew a whole bunch of stuff. I didn't have a clue, and life was teaching me as I was going along. On the other hand, I thought you were going to ask a question about the bishop and the diocese. I had nothing but great support and encouragement, and I was blessed with an amazing Vatican II type bishop before before there was such a title even. Bernie Flanagan, he was an amazing guy. I can't say enough good about him. I had nothing but blessing from him over the years, and so, but that's another thing. In terms of personal stuff, it's just you're young, you're still you look with hindsight, learning from experience, and at the same time thinking you know a lot. And
well, certainly we were not mature in the priesthood, or whatever stage of ordination we were in, but we did have certain gifts, and we wanted to live those gifts. We knew that they were effective. We knew that we needed to be within certain boundaries. Hell, in Los Angeles, the boundaries were so damn close. They were almost, right next to my skin, is what I felt. But we knew that we could develop and mature and get to know the other priesthood, the priests. And there were some guys, Father Barry in Claremont, where Tom was pastor. He was an amazingly wonderful guy. And there were other guys who were full of light and energy and had established themselves, I guess, to the point of not being constantly under the microscope. But there were so many other guys that were under the microscope. Frank, did you feel that you were going to be living a life of development and and joy, with your flock?
Again, I'm kind of trying to absorb, McIntyre and Hawks because
No need to absorb any of that.
I know there are those kind of people around. And that there was some people in Boston who were like that, but they weren't in those key positions.
Oh.
And I kind of felt when I came back that I needed a lot of development, a lot of growth. That I was 25 years old when I was ordained. I was 25 on November 23rd, and I was ordained on December 21st. And fortunately, I didn't have a pastor who was, on my case or anything like that. We actually became friends. And rather than him telling me that he was crazy, he told me one time at table, when something I said, he said, "Frank, you're crazy." And I said to him, I know, Monsignor, but if you're not a little crazy in this world, how are you going to survive? Well, you got something there, he said. And so I was in that kind, but the other two guys, one was a total eccentric who I loved. He was lovable eccentric. The other guy was a backstabber. So it was difficult to live in that kind of situation. So I think over time, it's the interesting thing is about growing and maturing. I think our maturity was kind of put in the freezer, our growth, while we were in the seminary. And then all of a sudden you're out in the world and you go to this wedding, and this lady's hanging around you all day, and you begin to say, I think she thinks I'm attractive. How do I manage that? So there and all sorts of situations like that are coming. Or, for example, that someone invites you. Like I remember being invited to dinner one night. Walter Murphy was his name. He was I really liked Walter, but he was kind of had this sense of himself, and he showed up. Francine was beautiful. She came in a gown. I went for dinner to their house. She was in a gown, and Walter was in a smoking jacket. And he was kind of telling me that because I didn't do things exactly like my predecessors, that I was a revolutionary, kind of, which to some extent I was.
Yeah.
But a controlled revolutionary. In the seminary, my first evaluation, they told me seeds of intractability. And in fact, I write a book. I think that's going to be the title.
That sounds great.
That's your
biopic. So over time, I think what begins to dawn on you, and I wasn't in a box. What begins to dawn on me is that if I'm going to make a ministry, I got to do it kind of my way. Yeah. I can't wait for someone to tell me I'm going to do this. I have to do something the way I want to do it. I have to go spend my time in the juvenile court. I have to get a bicycle and ride around the parish. I mean, the first time I got a bicycle and went around the parish, I thought I'd be back in 30 minutes. I was back in 3 hours. I had so many conversations.
Fantastic.
So it seems to me that, and then leaving was very, very difficult. I always quote this Scottish priest who was abused by Keith O'Brien. And he said he tried to leave the priesthood, but the priesthood wouldn't leave him. Now, it's important to understand, I think, that when you leave, frankly, if you leave, the Lord wants you to focus on your wife and your children and your life then, and not to be back and forth, if you will. And so when and I was that way. I would never hide the fact that I was a priest, but I didn't carry my oils around in my car. And so, then when I decided to go back, it was, I think, because the priesthood had not left me. When my mother was dying, I told my sister I needed to be with her for a little while, because she was kind of a hoverer and I had to get rid of her. And I went and I talked to my mother and told her, what she meant to us in our lives and the values she passed on to us. And then my other sister went in to see her the next day, and my mother said, Francis came in, she called me Francis, came in and talked to me. And she said, it was so consoling. And then she looked at my sister and said, always a priest. And so you can't escape it in a way, but that doesn't mean that you can't live and love, in different circumstances. And so Bob, when I think, obviously I think of you a priest in every which way, but I think it's very sad that the church didn't do for you what it did for me.
Right.
Right. And it's just because of the luck of the draw, if you will, because my bishop, can talk to the Pope in the hallway and yours can't.
Right.
So to some extent, you guys in Los Angeles were subject to McIntyre and Hawks. And that was kind of formative. You needed more courage to break out than we needed. And so I always think that, so now I agree with Norm. My last 5 years return to the priesthood as an old man have been moments of great joy and happiness in living in the kind of church that is the total absolute antithesis to McIntyre and Hawks.
Yeah, that's for sure.
and that's because more and more, even though it's slowly and it's halting, we're beginning to see the church as church. And that my formation as a priest, having come back, didn't happen in the seminary. That was nice. It was a wonderful experience. But I was formed by the people of God in Our Lady of Sorrows Parish as a priest again. So, I mean, the thing is so complex, it seems to me.
I agree.
Yeah.
That it's difficult to talk about. And actually, it makes me really sad, from one point of view, but they have great admiration for you guys in Los Angeles who put up with this shit. And I think they have a lot to answer for.
Yeah.
I'd like to jump, if I can, Frank, back to Gary. I am so touched by what you said, Gary Lombardi, that a bishop came knocking at your door.
Oh, yeah.
To say, how are you doing? And are you ready to go the next step? I mean, holy mackerel. Would LA Diocese have ever seen that back in those years? I don't think so.
Hell no.
I don't know. Tom, were you with me one time years ago? We were seminarians then. And I don't know if I was with you or with somebody. And where did McIntyre live? Didn't he live in Hancock Park or some?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah, Hancock Park. That's true.
No, Chester,
was,
Place, something like that.
And we said, well, why don't we stop in and wish him a Merry Christmas? And then we said, are you kidding? You wouldn't knock on his door.
I don't know. Yeah, it might have been. It sounds like the ironic sort of thing that I might say.
Yeah, I think I don't know what it was, but yeah, but John, once and Ned, what you, I mean, and Frank's right. I mean that, and I'm sure there were other dioceses the same way. But remember, that was the tail end. The tail end. Oh, take care, Omar. The tail end of the old thing. I mean, the Second Vatican Council hadn't happened in Los Angeles yet, and but in other dioceses, the spirit had already taken hold.
Well, we went through something of a transition there because Manning came in 2 years after we were ordained as coadjutor.
Yeah.
And McIntyre retired after that. But Hawks was still very much in charge.
Mhm.
And you know, my own personal story was I had the distinction, for one thing, I think I've told this before, had the distinction within my first year after ordination, having the distinction of being in the position to tell Hawks in so many words to go to hell. Because he called me in and wanted to assign me to Joe Sharp up in Oxnard, who had a reputation of driving young associates either out of the priesthood, out of the into a mental institution, or into suicide. And he was tired of losing young priests to Joe Sharp, the pastor. So he was upfront, Hawks was, in telling me that they're going to send him the one who had the highest recommendation from the faculty of the seminary in the previous ordination class, and sort of send him to him as a, he didn't use these words, but it was obvious, as a sacrificial victim. That if you can't, telling him basically, you know, if you do the same thing to this guy as you did to the others, you're not going to get anybody else. And he wanted an answer. Would I go? He said, I won't force you, which was interesting. But he said, you know, you got to give me an answer. And I said, I have to talk to my spiritual director first. So I'll give you an answer tomorrow. And he said, no, you give it to me right now. And I said, no, I think I have a right to talk to my spiritual director and consider this. And so he consulted with the eminence and came back and said, okay, but you let me know tomorrow. So I drove up to the Camarillo, first of all, and talked with John Danaher, who was my spiritual director, and then talked with a few of the neighboring pastors around there, find out what this guy Sharp was like, and got uniformly the, you know, oh my God, don't do it. So I went back, and the next day called Hawks, and I said, well, you know, if I'm placed under obedience, I will go, which I knew was a possibility that they would, and that I would have to accept it because I made that promise, you know, prometis mihi, meis, and all that shit. Anyway, so I said, I respectfully decline. And his only words were, well, you've made my job that much harder, and hung up.
Well, you know, I mean, why didn't he just say to Sharp earlier, you know what? We have lost so many young priests. He says, we're going to move you.
I get the hell out of there.
Well, there were things like immovable pastors and all of that kind of stuff that there was supposed to be. You know, it was just absolute nonsense. Then, you know, I was really hoping and was supported by the seminary faculty and by the then beginning with Manning, beginning liturgical committee of the priest senate. Manning started the senate to, you know, to be sent to Rome, or to be sent for further liturgical studies, which I really wanted. And basically, I applied for it. I had to kind of beg, but got the permission. I wasn't sent really, but I got the permission to go. But for only 1 year. But it had to be to Rome, not to Notre Dame, which is where I really wanted to go to Catholic U, their program with Fred McManus. But
A Boston.
yeah.
A Boston priest, Fred is.
But anyway,
Probably.
you know, you can go, but you have to go to Rome because they figured that Rome would be safer. So, okay. But you can only go for 1 year. Well, it's a 2-year program. I know, but you know, liturgy suspect. So only 1 year. I tried my damnedest to get that extended while I was there. In fact, personally begged Manning, and he wouldn't do it because Hawks wouldn't allow it. So I came back, was at St. Philomena's for a year, experienced a little more duplicity on the part of the archdiocese because no sooner did I get that, well, Archie Rodden lied to me to get me to go there, but as soon as I got back and became active in the liturgical commission, Manning started talking to me about going back and finishing my degree. So that had to be 2 years later to get into the cycle. And that was,
God bless Manning for that.
well, God bless him, but God damn him for not letting me continue.
Yeah, for being under the thumb of Hawks.
You know, and the other thing is, he wanted me to be the director of the liturgical office, but he wouldn't shove that idiot bitch sister, not Cecilia, sister.
I just hope Frank Daly's granddaughter is not listening to this.
But yeah, you know, that's like Tom. Before you finish, that idiot bitch. There was a.
You wouldn't have to ask what either one of them are, but anyway.
There was a woman. There was a secretary in our chancery office years ago. Maggie Cook. She had a gravelly voice, and some pastor called up. He was mad, and I forget Tom Key. He says, "I want to talk to that son of a bitch," and she says, "Father, which son of a bitch do you want to talk to?"
Oh yeah.
But Tom, that's interesting because that fits exactly with what I'm saying about making your ministry.
Yeah.
You know,
I was
huge shoals
yeah.
to navigate in order to make your ministry.
But what I did, and you know, I've always been an in the wall.
Hey there.
So a lot of what I've had to do is kind of a little bit subterfuge. You know,
What do you mean by in
my
the
own
wall?
decisions under the radar.
Yeah. Is that what you mean by in the wall, Tom?
No, I contrast that somebody wants an associate that I had.
We can. Okay, so just give me a text message, okay?
Yeah, I'll give you a few minutes morning, something like that, and give it to you.
How do we mute these guys?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Or-
Ned.
So you were talking about the element of subterfuge, Tom.
Well, in the wall verse, you know, had an associate in campus ministry who described herself as an off the wall extrovert. So I would always, after she would introduce herself, I'd say, well, I'm an in the wall introvert. So that's where it comes in. But, you know, I kind of, yeah, I sort of was able to engineer some things. Norm and Bill Kersey were big influences at a time when I was totally in a quandary. And was contemplating going to another diocese. The difficulty with going to another diocese, I always fantasized that I would, go to a place where Bishop Joe Cool was the bishop, and then the ink would be dry on my incardination papers, and Joe Cool would either die or be transferred somewhere else, and John Ward would take his place.
There you go.
Oh, dear God. Oh, dear God.
So that kind of kept me in the frying pan that at least I knew the temperature of. But there was, remember we had an ordination anniversary, Norm, and I think Bill Kersey was there for some reason or other too, in Palm Springs.
Yes.
And both you and Kersey were really pushing me and pulling me to get into campus ministry.
Yes,
And
we were, because we knew it'd be a savior for you.
Yeah. Well, and I was resistant, and I came home that night, was to Holy Name of Jesus Parish in South Central, and was walking up the stairs to my bedroom, and the National Catholic Reporter was there. And so I got ready for bed, got in bed, and the first thing I looked at in the National Catholic Reporter, which I was doing those days, was the want ads. To see what kind of openings there were in various other dioceses, and maybe could I be tempted. And I saw this big ad for campus ministry position at Cal State Long Beach in Los Angeles. And I thought, my God, I've got Norm and Bill Kersey pulling me and pushing me to that position. And here it is. Is that a sign from God?
That's God knocking. Hello, Tom.
And that was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me.
Norm,
Okay,
It was
so
awesome
let
to
me
see.
let me ask for a transition. You had sent this photo of your class, and you don't have to do it, but I would love it if you could spend a few minutes going through this photo of the 26, 27 guys on there and kind of informing us like what's happened to them. Do you mind doing that, Tom or Norm or any of you
I'll be
guys?
glad to do that
I'd like,
sometime. Yeah.
before you go into that, I'd like Norm to finish the comments that he was going to make, because I know that you were going to say something about your perspective on
yeah,
that
agree.
particular transition. which I don't
he
know
was
the
very happy from the beginning. Norman.
So I think I've had a wonderful journey. My first pastor was Monsignor Sheen, and I remember my first reaction to him because he looked very stern.
Yeah.
He was old, gray-haired, and Irish. And I said, what the hell am I getting into?
Next to Salesian High School, right?
Well, he's next to Salesian High School. He's in San Isabel Parish.
Yeah.
And I thank God for him, because he was just so kind, so understanding. So he looked very strict, but he had a lot. He had people coming to confession for him from all over the state. I mean, it's really interesting, because he was such a kind and caring priest, and he was awesome to me. He was just amazing, and that really helped me a lot, to be able to have somebody like that.
Norm, are you saying amazing as a role model, or how would you
Yes.
say it was amazing for you?
He was a role model, but he's also very kind, very kind, very patient.
And kind, both and.
Yeah. And he was just I don't know. I don't know how to put it. It's just that he was a saint. And because he was a saint, people came from all over to see him. And I don't hesitate to say saint, because he was just an amazing, amazing person who loved God and loved people. And he could even read their sins in confession. People would come to a confession. He would say, well, you forgot to mention that you had sex with someone else, And the person said, oh, yeah. But he said with kindness. he took kindness, you know, he just said he didn't yell at them. It was like, you know, you just forgot to mention that. And yes, God's gonna forgive you for that too. And it was just he was an amazing, amazing man. I don't know how any other words to say it. And as Irish as they come too. He was born to be a priest. He was raised as a priest. And when he had to change the light bulb in his room, he didn't know how to do it. So he called me and said, "Can you change the light bulb for me?" I mean, it was like that. It's just, but oh my gosh, people came all day long to go to confession to him. Just an amazing man. And I thank God that God sent me to someone like him.
What was his name again, Norm?
Monsignor Michael Sheehan.
Okay.
Actually, I've heard of him.
When he came to the diocese, McIntyre told him, "Look, you can choose what parish you want. I have some very nice parishes for you." And he said to McIntyre, "I want the poorest parish you have." And he said, "No. You deserve to get a really nice parish." And he said, "No, I want the poorest parish you have." And so they sent him out to Simon's Brickyards, which was East LA. And he started from there, and he was a saint. I honestly, God, he was a saint. He told God, he says, "I need a school." He built a little church. "I need a school for the kids. The kids don't have any school." So he said that prayer, and the next day a lady comes driving up this dirt road to where he was out in Simon's Brickyards and stops and says, "I don't know. God told me in a dream last night that I'm to build a school here." That's the kind of guy he was. He was, oh my God, what a gift from God he was. He was amazing, just amazing.
You know, I was surprised, Norm.
And he loved me. Even though he was very, very formal, he loved me. And when I left, he says, "Norm," he says, "it was like a ton of bricks fell on me when you left." So we loved each other. It was good.
Yeah.
I was so lucky, so blessed.
I was really blessed. I scared the hell out of me when I met him. I mean, because I knocked on the door, he opened the door, and yeah, this guy, he's 6 foot tall and white hair and looked very stern and straight. I go, "Oh dear God, what am I getting into?" And he's very formal. He says, "Welcome, Father Supanchek." Come on in. It was amazing.
It's too bad that it's the luck of the draw. I mean, I'm you know that I'm listening. I can't imagine Ned's life if he had been in Santa Rosa or in Boston or something like that. And what makes me sad is the loss. In a way, Ned, you are not a loss to the church because you have stayed very active, but what a loss of a quality priest by the fact that they treated you like that they were assholes. That's just a sadness.
That's a good word to put it. Hawks was an asshole.
But
That's a sadness.
Tim, isn't that the case? It's the corporate aspect of the institution. I mean, and it, you know, I'm sure
Yeah.
in your own businesses, or I mean, maybe a university, you have
Yeah.
a chancellor who's an asshole, or a president, or the head of a
Yeah.
department who's the same kind of person. I mean,
Well, you do have them. I mean, when I got assigned to Cal State LA, the president was nice to me. He was Catholic, but the vice president, she says, "We don't want you."
Really?
Oh yeah. And the next day, we had a faculty staff luncheon, and I got invited, and I was there, and she got a piece of meat stuck in her throat, and she was choking, and she was trying to tell people around her that she was choking, trying to make signs to them. She was choking. I was the only one to notice. I said, "Oh dear God, here's the only person who doesn't want me, and now she needs me." And so over, I said, "You want the Heimlich?" She said, "Oh!" So I gave her the Heimlich, and out came the meat. And after that, she was my friend.
But you know, Norm,
Police
got-
spirit again.
That's God hitting you
God
upside the
bless
head.
but
I was Heimlich so many times on my wife. I say, God bless Dr. Heimlich. He's got to be in heaven for all the good things he did for so many people. This is just another one, Norm.
Another
That was
example.
another one. That was amazing. I said,
Big
dear
story.
God, you're weird. You work out such weird things for me.
but I
And it's
mean,
interesting, Norm, you have never been a pastor, have you?
Yes, a pastor in Fillmore.
In Fillmore. How long?
15 years, I think.
Oh, okay. Then I take that. That's right. You were pastor there.
a nice little town, Norm.
It's a beautiful town.
Yeah,
Fillmore and Piru, both
Nice
of them just
little-
awesome
nice little-
places.
I was baptized in Piru, you know.
Oh, were you?
Yeah. I
San
have,
Salvador Church.
I think there was a little mission there or something. But
Yeah, San Salvador Church. Yeah, San Salvador Mission Church. Yeah.
Norm, didn't Barney wind up there for a while?
Yeah, he's still there. Yeah, the pastor at St. Francis had both places. You know, St. Francis Assisi Church in Fillmore and San Salvador Mission in Piru.
Mhm.
And Barney came in and they just let him take over that mission in Piru. That's where he's been. He still is.
Oh, that's a place where he would have loved it.
Oh, he does love it. Oh my God, he loves it. And the people love him.
He wanted to be with poor Mexicans because he's very tall and he loved them, but he also wanted people who would follow him, and
They do.
and they do. And he'd run around building grottos and gardens and stuff like that, and have them
He
help
took
him.
that place. It was just a little mission church in the field, and that place looks awesome. I don't know if you've ever been there, but he has
No.
done wonderful things in there. Put a fountain in there. He's put a big park in there with chairs and Stations of the Cross, and he's amazing. He is amazing.
I often wondered about him because he was so bright. He was a very bright man, but he shunned reading and academics and
Yes.
getting into like the liturgy, the theology of it, the work of it. He didn't want to get into anything that had an intellectual side to it, or he didn't want to be with people who were intelligent and would engage him. He just wanted humble obedience.
And that's what he has. And the people absolutely, I hate to use this word adore, but almost like that. They adore him. He's just amazing in that parish. It's just perfect parish for him.
Yeah, this is one of our classmates ordained in '68.
I'm going to risk being bombed with Berettas even over Zoom to try to steer the conversation.
It's a good idea.
At this fabulous time of the year, it's congratulations to those, it's anniversary time, ordination, almost ordination for some. And just wondering, we've been talking a lot about ministry and various approaches. And this past week brings the news in NCR and the New York Times, a variety of other places, of what Francis has taken one more step to reshape the look of the church in the future.
Oh, yeah.
I'm wonderfully blown away in the best sense of reading about who will be legitimately voting within the synod come fall in Rome.
Yeah.
A quarter of them non-clerics, including, oh my God, women. And it's like, this is, for me anyway, it feels transformative. It feels like Francis is really implementing his agenda for a church, what am a church, finally, or what it might look like into the future. And so I'm wondering what if any thoughts, reactions there might be among? the
Thank you for
elders?
bringing that up because we've got here a group uniquely in a position to say Vatican II synodality. Just amazing. And I'd love to hear some compare and contrast.
Well, just one little comment. I really thought that synodality would just evanesce and be gone. But it looks like it's turned a corner and really gathering steam in some great dioceses like San Diego.
Yeah, McElroy's an amazing guy. Yes.
Up in heaven, John R. Quinn must be also preparing a nice banquet for Francis when he gets there. I do remember that one of the first things Francis did was to write a personal letter to Quinn thanking him for his books on reform of the church in the papacy in the direction of synodality. And part of it was Quinn was the only one who took John Paul II's request for suggestions on how the papacy can reform its or the Petrine ministry can reform itself in a way that is more ecumenical and open and acceptable to our separated brethren, shall we say. And Quinn was the only one who did that, and he was completely ignored.
Yeah. Synodality seems so messy.
Well, it is.
Yes.
So is the church. I mean, I think
It's real. That's the wonder of it. I mean, it comes right out of the experience of us at every level.
but I think
You really have to trust in the Holy Spirit.
yeah,
Imagine that.
yeah.
Well, just like, democracy is messy.
Yes.
That's the appeal of authoritarianism.
Yeah.
That it's not so messy. It's neat.
And-
We
and
just
yet-
get rid of everybody who doesn't agree with us.
And
Predictable.
you experience precisely what authoritarianism is. In your whole story about going through the diaconate and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That was pure authoritarianism, had nothing to do with the way the church is meant to be. And I mean, I've always, I was with PJ McGrath, we were on our cruise together, retired bishop of San Jose. He just said, I pray that Francis lives a long time. Because he's establishing, I mean, the synodality is, I mean, it came and went in our diocese, boom. I mean, and but as I say, it's a way of being church more than anything else, and it's a very practical way to live out the Second Vatican Council's vision of the church, seems to me. So that step, I didn't, Bob, until you said that, I really hadn't paid close attention to what Francis did in allowing women to be a part of the synod and voting with bishops.
And voting voting with bishops. I mean, yes, underlining that as in really, yes, really. It's going to happen. Have any of you had the experience formally of being part of a synodal group or conversation that was providing input?
Mhm.
And it's weird. I may be the only one who has, but it wasn't at the diocesan level because I'm part of the community of Camaldoli Benedictines, which I've spoken of here, I was invited to sit in a synodal process related to men and women religious orders. So it was a little different perspective, but it was really quite wonderful to see fully what I expected that it would be, having been part of the Benedictine family here in the Bay Area for quite a number of years. But I don't know what it was like at the parochial level. If anything, I yearned for it to be there. I looked for it in the parish where I do some volunteer work, and where I worship typically on Sundays because of the elder care ministry I'm involved in there. But nothing really, which was also true, just as Gary had just said, the Oakland Diocese pro forma only. It kind of looks good. I look it up on the diocesan website, and it's really pro forma. There isn't any really impact, except among those few churches where pastors have a reputation for being a little more liberal and open, but they don't get very far.
I think some of these bishops look at it as a goals and objectives sort of deal, just a corporate kind of boom, let's do this and get it over with.
Right.
Instead of really seeing it as a whole way for people to exist in the church.
It's taking the hierarchical pyramid and literally, Francis, is with great effort flipping it in the direction of standing on its head.
But I'll say this. I remember, Ned, you mentioned, for a while in my priesthood, I got involved with the Industrial Areas Foundation, Ernie Cortez and all that group, that's where I saw Mike Clemens. And I remember going to we had some big gathering in Marin County. I think that's when I ran across Mike Clemens, because we'd been in the seminary, and I said, my God, this is, but I remember they broke us into groups, and Ernie Cortez was running the whole thing, and he tells them, share your stories and this and that. So then they had kind of reports of the groups. And one guy said, well, we got up and we started talking about, he listed like 5 or 6 or 7 issues that needed to be addressed or something like that. But Ernie Cortez says, you mean you had an hour and a half with 8 very interesting people, and all you did was come up with issues to deal, instead of spending time talking to among yourselves, all of you interesting people, it was the same sort of thing that Francis is talking about. Ernie says, you start sharing your stories and your life, and somehow or other, and I could never figure it out, but somehow or other issues would begin to surface. But the most important thing was the sharing of the stories.
Yeah, Ernie is a brilliant guy. He's still active. When Bishop O'Connell's one of his funeral services that I attended to, he had a bunch of IAF people there.
Yeah.
He was there, and we had a great reunion of people and talk. But he got a MacArthur grant. I think it was $500,000 tax-free to do anything he wanted for a year or two. That's the kind of reputation and trust people had in him, and that was what he was all about. He was, you get people who are imaginative and bright and with deep roots in community, and you begin to share with one another, and things bubble up,
yeah,
that are are most important rather than some kind of academic exercise with statistics and that kind of thing. And he's the same guy. And yeah, I think I'm hoping that that's the kind of thing that we'll have in parishes, because that's, when you share, you feel free and you feel trusting. And if you have people worthy of that trust, wonderful things can happen. Oh, that's great.
We have in Boston,
How
interesting.
important listening skills are in what you're describing.
Yes, absolutely. John just recently told me that some of the people that he most values are those who know how to listen. And boy, do I agree with you, John.
In Boston, they did very pro forma. They sent out a questionnaire with one-word answers, which is a complete misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Two things happened, I think, that to some extent helped and hurt the introduction of this. We had a meeting just before I left the parish, but we were still meeting by Zoom. And but that was we had a lot of Zoom meetings. It was a kind of, we had more almost adult religious education during the pandemic than we had before the pandemic, because the Zoom thing got popular and people really liked to do it because they were lonely, among other things, and wanted to talk. And so we did have one session that we billed as in the synod, but it was, and then I left. I retired. I was gone. So I don't think it was picked up. But this diocese hasn't taken it a serious lot. And I think there's a number of problems. One is learning how to listen. Two, I think we need to be insistent again and again and again that Pope Francis correctly, I think, sees this as a quasi-liturgical exercise. It is not a focus group. It is not a town meeting. It is a place where people of faith sit together and try to fathom how the Holy Spirit is speaking to them through the community. And so on that sense, we first have to learn how to listen and do this kind of thing, but then we have to learn how to, about the Holy Spirit. I mean, here in the house, 2 or 3 days a week, they have evening prayer and benediction. And I go quite a bit. I kind of like it. Although I haven't had benediction for a long time, I have to admit. I still remember Tantum Ergo. That's kind of in your DNA.
Makes your hair grow.
And in Latin, I still remember it. And I don't tell all my liberal friends, but I actually kind of secretly like it. I love it, actually. Not necessarily benediction as such, but the Tantum Ergo. So at any rate.
Takes you right back to your roots.
So I'm looking at the divine praises. All right. So God the Father is mentioned twice. Jesus is mentioned 3 times. The Blessed Mother is mentioned 4 times. St. Joseph once. God the Father actually is 3 times. And St. Joseph once, and the Holy Spirit once.
Once.
Now, once. God the Father 3 times. Jesus 5 times. The Blessed Mother 4 or 5 times. St. Joseph once, and the Holy Spirit once. So it seems to me that, we gotta, it's a theological problem, certainly, but it's also a pastoral problem as to part of the listening is, what are you listening for?
Mm-hmm.
I'm listening for the Holy Spirit to appear in the midst of our communion, not for some consensus about whether how we feel on this issue, that issue, the other. Now that may be the result of it, but that's not, that loses something of the quasi-liturgical aspect of the synod. I don't know how to do it, to tell you the honest to God's truth, but I think if it's going to work, the emphasis is kind of in the wrong place, not in the chancery office. It's with diocesan priests who work at parishes with people every day.
Amen.
And
that was what was so deeply flawed in the Industrial Areas Foundation process. We would go to congresses and places for 3 or 4 days to listen to theologians and really bright folk who understood organization, how to build organizations. But there was a pretense, or it seemed to me to be a pretense of bringing God into the conversation and following some kind of spirit that would lead us. But we never really did it. And then when we got out into the communities, it was just power. It was power blocks. It was building the power of the poor to either vote, confirm the people who were in power, or get them out so that we could get curbs and gutters and lights and parks and good schools. But this synod idea, this synod process, hopefully, Frank, the folks that enter into it will have grown in just enough to be able to listen to the Holy Spirit.
And Ned, in conjunction with exactly that, how much silent and contemplative time will be built in? If a liturgy has contemplation time, then the Holy Spirit has more than one piece. If that...
Yeah, and that has been the flaw, I think one of the key flaws of much of the post-Vatican II implementation, that the time framed within the liturgy, which exists for silence, is ignored. And, to allow for silence, to allow the content of the liturgy and the relationships being built in the liturgy to kind of sink in, to mature, to mellow. No, everybody's uncomfortable with silence in the Mass. We've got to fill it with something. And
I love when the priest says, "Let us," how do you say it, brothers and sisters? Let us pause for a moment to examine our sins, so as to prepare ourselves to celebrate the sacred mysteries. I confess.
Yeah.
I said, wait a minute, I need a lot more time to think about this.
My sins.
And all of a sudden it's boom. Wait a minute. I'm just, I haven't even gotten to the deep ones yet. So, that maybe that, or at the end of Mass, the people are kind of anxious to go, but they haven't been trained in letting, and like at St. Vincent's, there's a guy who, Stu Manzano, he's a pianist, and he always does something the way he ends the musical things for the, during the Mass, during the communion, that he ends it in such a way that it just leads to a deep quiet, and you wouldn't dare disrupt that quiet for a while. So I think it trains people in time, like you said, Tom, to use silence in the liturgy.
Yeah, the contemplative dimension that the liturgy calls for has so seldom been recognized. So that's been one of my big frustrations. But
one of the things, Tom, that I appreciate, I participate in the Wednesday Vesper Eucharist at Incarnation Monastery. Blessed to have it, as the crow flies 5 minutes away from where I live here in the Berkeley Hills. And what I particularly appreciate about it is the slowing down of the whole liturgical practice. The rest, the chanting of the Vesper liturgy, and then the celebration of the Eucharist was very intentionally done and very quiet. And it's hilarious because every now and then there'll be a visitor from outside, and they don't get the rhythm initially, but it doesn't take them long because they will kind of say things very quickly, like you would in the local parish, and many local parishes. But there, everything is slowed down, and there's a nice rhythm to it. And suddenly they seem to get it. And if they don't, one of the monks walks over and gently sits with them and just whispers in their, literally whispers in their ear. And they kind of, but most of them just pick it up intuitively. I appreciate that very much.
That's interesting to think about the synodality process involving moments of quiet as well.
Very important. Very important.
Hey, Thomas, we have 10 minutes.
9 minutes. I need to quit exactly at 12 noon because I've got a 12:20 appointment for my strength training, my perfect workout. And it takes me 5 minutes to get up there. So
Of course.
12 noon. So we have 8 minutes now.
Can I ask a question about the class? Liam Kidney, I thought he was Irish and trained at All Hallows.
He is.
Yes,
Yes, and he was.
was.
Wait a minute. No,
Oh, but
not- he was trained at last 4 years at St. John's.
Oh, okay, okay. I didn't realize that. I thought he was ordained at St. All Hallows, like Dave O'Connell was.
Right.
And then, I didn't realize that.
I think Manning, Timothy Manning, really wanted him to come here for the
Okay. Yeah.
Tom, did you send a picture of our class out?
Yeah, he did, Gary. That was the beauty of the thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
That's why we tried to figure how you got on it, Gary.
And there's not a single palm tree in that one.
I replaced, that's what John Moretta said. I replaced the palm tree. They put my picture back in. Yeah.
Well, sometime today or tomorrow, I'm going to rescan that photograph I have on the hall into a higher resolution so that you don't have to guess at the names, and send it out. And
I'll look for it.
maybe
Was
maybe next week, Tim, or when you're out here, Tim, we can go over it.
Hey, Bob, I just want to say the other night I had dinner with a friend of mine. We met at Acre Restaurant in North Rockridge area there by, in Oakland, Berkeley. And he lives in the Berkeley Hills. So I took him home. He lives above the university. It may be, your monastery may be 5 minutes as the crow flies, but I bet you it's a 20-minute drive. I've never been in a place where all these streets, they cry this, it's like it's booked.
And they are narrow. I always dread encountering another vehicle.
I wouldn't know how to.
Yeah, that you've described my ride over to Incarnation as the crow flies, or the robin or the blue jay, 5 minutes or less, but it is a good 20 minutes of windy, twisty, turny, yes. Fun of living in the hills.
Yeah,
Tim, we're now down to 5 minutes. Was there something more you wanted to bring in?
No. Maybe when Tommy does the scanning, he could do just a quick thing like deceased. Man, I don't know, Tom, if that's too much work for you. Because I was looking.
So you'll all be next week. A bunch of you will be with George, and you'll still have the Friday morning gathering.
Yeah.
Now, will you be, Tim, where will you be next Friday morning?
I'll be on a Delta flight to Atlanta. Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, I can go
Do
through
they
this.
have, do they have Wi-Fi access? That would be
I
fun to
suppose.
have you in the plane.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll try. I mean, that would be, well, I don't know. I'm going in steerage, that's the class of the class that I'm in is steerage, the baggage steerage. And I don't know that I'm hoping to get a seat, but that's maybe the best I can do. I'm using frequent flyer mileage, and so you don't have a whole lot of choices.
Right. Right. I'm gonna be in the last minute or so bold as to wonder, Tom, if there's any chance for those of us who can't get there for a variety of reasons to be able to join you by Zoom at the celebration of the Eucharist.
I have
and the
been
visit.
thinking that, and I was going to mention it, and then I didn't get a chance. And let me.
If it's possible, I understand the technical stuff and signal strength and all that, but
I don't think there would be much difficulty. I've got a tripod that I can fit my iPhone on and set it up. And if Crook's internet service holds out, I don't see why it can't be zoomed.
And I also want to mention, that I'll be there also because I was able to cancel things.
Good.
Norm, you're going to come celebrate?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
It's going to be so good. And
Yeah.
Ned, let me ask you, Ned, are you still considered to be a legitimate deacon? So could you read the gospel, or do you have that ability, or do you have the right to read the gospel?
I was told just a little bit ago by you guys that once a deacon, always a deacon. No, I've been laicized. I've been told to keep away from any of that kind of stuff, or at least I was told that, how many, 50 plus years ago.
Then what is it?
I
that
think it
you've
will
been
depend
preaching?
on the judgment of the presider or presiders. So, Norm, do you have any problem with
Nope,
Ned
not at
reading
all.
the gospel? Okay,
Yeah.
I don't either.
And Ned, you've been elevated to the lay state. And,
Yeah.
and that means you now have truly the option of functioning quad-deacon.
Yeah,
So-
and
So
then you won't have,
momentarily, you can descend to the servant state.
yeah.
Okay.
Amen.
Oh,
And-
Ned, that'd be great. That'd be great. You better practice your reading then.
Yeah.
Ned,
And
Ned,
no
if you
guitar,
have-
Ned, no
if you have-
guitars, no singing.
No guitar? Oh, no.
if you have, if you
Yes,
have any,
Guitar.
if you have any issues crossing back and forth over those lines, I can give you a few tips.
Okay, I'll call you. Hey, by the way, Liam Kidney came
That's
from
good, Frank.
Liam Kidney came from Mungret Jesuit School in Limerick to St. John.
Oh, okay.
But Liam is from Cork, and so is Manning.
Yeah.
And David O'Connell was as well.
David O'Connell, and
Yeah.
the Cork men never say goodbye.
Yeah.
They leave without saying goodbye.
Without saying goodbye, exactly. That was a great line. Fabulous line.
So
My
if
mother and
there's-
father, my mother and father were from
Right.
Cork, so.
Ah,
Give us a blessing.
Yeah,
Tom,
late
Please.
My late uncle was the vicar general of the diocese.
Ah,
may we call it a quits, or call it a day.
thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Amen.
God
God
bless
bless
you
you.
all. Love
Good-
you.
Good
Take care.
week. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you
Bye,
all
guys.
soon.